Hello and welcome to our ninth episode of One Cardinal, One Cub, and One Beer. I am Vincent Opper and our co-host is JJ Jackson. How are you doing?
Vince, doing great. We're about to get into the holiday season now. Thanksgiving's coming. Um, Man, lots going on. It's good to see your smiling face. A lot of awards have been going on, and Vince, I have a bit of trivia that you may not know. I'm going to try you out on this.
Okay.
I didn't know this until this morning, so I can't take credit for this. The Eagles were in town last night. I hear it was a very good show. They did the whole Hotel California.
Okay.
And
Real quick, I
yes,
don't know if I want to see them without Glenn Fry.
well, yeah,
But
there's
anyway, go ahead.
one
Proceed.
original member, but I hear Vince Gill stole the show on a guitar solo on the last song off of Hotel California. They played it all the way through. They had a orchestra for Wasted Time, and a choir sang with them on Wasted Time, and they said that stole the show. And then Vince Gill had a guitar solo at the end of the of that album, the last song. But there is a connection between the Eagles and the Cardinals. Would you happen to know that connection?
Yes, I do. They are both birds.
Vince, you never stop to amaze me. That was beautiful. Well, there is something else as well, and that was a
Oh,
very good answer. Don Henley, the last original member of the original Eagles, came from John Hewlett from KC. I heard this morning.
okay.
His grandchild, I don't know if it's a grandson or granddaughter, is married to Mike Shannon's grandchild. And
Wow.
yeah, how about that? Who knew? I didn't know. So that's a little trivia there for everybody out there. The Eagles, the Henleys, and the Shannons have gotten together. Um, like I said, it's award season again. And then the last time we talked about the Gold Gloves, but it was announced that Nolan Arenado won his sixth Platinum Glove, which is given for the best defensive player in each league. So very good, Nolan. And I tell you what, it's a treat watching him. I like to get there as early as I can. And if he is doing infield, because I know he does it every day, he works very hard. He reminds me of Ozzie Smith's work ethic on his defense. And it's just a pleasure getting to watch him every day. I try to watch every Cardinal game or at least listen to him, and he never stops to amaze me. And it's a pleasure to have him. I would pay the price of admission just to see him play. He's fantastic. But I didn't know this. They have a team Gold Glove, and the Cardinals won it this year for the second
Yes,
straight
they
year.
did.
I didn't even know there was a team Gold Glove. So congratulations to the Cardinals, and they did play great defense this year. And also some other things. The Silver Sluggers came out this year, and Arenado and Goldschmidt won it for the Cardinals, which is fantastic. The Hank Aaron Award, which is for the the most offensive player, the player that put up the biggest his stats, and Goldschmidt won the Hank Aaron Award. So that's fantastic. That may that may be a little sign of something that's coming for the MVP, but we'll see. We'll see. That's tomorrow in the voting. Uh, and the last thing I'm going to mention, I'm going to mention a player. I'm not going to do a long thing on him, but the Arizona Fall League wrapped up, and the Cardinals had a minor leaguer that won the pitcher of the Arizona Fall League, and it was a guy named Connor Thomas. He's 24. He's a left-hander. If you look at his seasonal stats, he's our 24th minor leaguer too. I mean, he went down there and played, but he developed a slider, and he tweaked it, and he tore it up down there. I mean, he had a 5.47 ERA in the regular season, and he went down there and in just 25 innings, he had a 1.75 ERA versus probably the top level minor leaguers in that Arizona Fall League,
Yeah.
and had 34 strikeouts in 25 innings. And that's pretty impressive right there. So congratulations to Connor Thomas. And I seen he got put on the 40-man roster as well. So they'll be looking at him long and hard in spring training.
Imagine the Cardinal left-hander learning a slider. Gosh, has that ever happened before?
Oh, a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times.
So what you're saying is this guy will be playing in Philadelphia in 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I want to send our condolences to the family of Chuck Carr. Chuck Carr, who played for the Cardinals in 1992, but blossomed with the Marlins. 1 year he led the league in stolen bases, had about a 10-year career, but he passed away in his, I believe he's in his mid-50s, about my age. So condolences. Talking about postseason awards, Rookie of the Year in the American League went to Julio Rodriguez. And this is how stacked the American League rookie was. Jeremy Pena, the MVP of the playoffs in the World Series, he got fifth place. So, but Rodriguez had much better stats than the rookie that I thought would win it. Michael Harris, the third from Atlanta, won in the National League. Terry Francona won his third Manager of the Year for the Guardians. Congrats. And Buck Showalter won for the Mets, which kind of surprised me because I thought Rob Thompson, who came into a losing team with a bad situation and took them to the playoffs. Of course, they vote on these before the playoffs so that they don't want the postseason to taint what they vote for. But I still thought that he would win it, but Showalter won it. As we were coming on, what's his first name? Alcantara for the Marlins won the National League Cy Young. Sandy, yeah.
An ex-Cardinal.
Yes, an ex-Cardinal. And in the American League, it has just come down to Justin Verlander. Surprise, surprise, has won again. A couple things I do want to address. I have to edit this show, so I watch myself. And when I make a mistake, it agitates me. And when we were opening up baseball cards, you pulled out Joel Youngblood, and I said former Cub. He was not a former Cub. I was thinking of Jay Johnstone because they were both left-handed pinch hitters. And they were both outlandish personalities. So sorry about that. And a couple of weeks ago, I said something about the balance schedule, that they play each team a regular amount of time. And I thought, no, that doesn't sound right. So I did some research on it. This is what the balance schedule is. There are going to be 52 games against divisional opponents. So you're going to be playing 13 games against your divisional opponents. Then that's down from 19. There's going to be 46 interleague games and one series against each club in the opposite league every year. So they will be playing everybody. And there's going to be a pair of 2-game series between natural interleague rivals like the Cardinals and the Royals, the Cubs, the White Sox. So that's pretty cool. And then there's going to be 64 games against non-divisional league teams. And so there will be a home and home series against each team. The Cardinals and Cubs will have a home series against the National League team that are out of their division. And I do like the schedule when I kind of broke it down like that. I can do, all right, 6 less games against the Pirates, 6 less games against the Reds. I'm going to miss the 6 less games against the Cardinals. But in the grand scheme of things, it is balanced because there are times when your interleague schedule is pretty weak if you're playing a division that is not that strong. This way, it is more equitable as far as playing the same amount of talent that other teams play. So I kind of like that. What do you think about it?
I'm with you because if you're playing these other wild card teams from other divisions, and it depends on your record to get in, if you're playing the same teams, the same amount, I think that's fair. Because a lot of times they say the Central of the National League is one of the weaker divisions, and we're like the Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Brewers are fattening up on the Pirates and the Reds. It's really not fair for the Phillies, who have a pretty tough schedule. Even the Marlins are a pretty good team over there. So I think I like it. I think that's fair. I do think that's fair.
In other news, the contemporary era ballot has been published, and this is players whose career was from 1980 through the present, who have retired and have fallen off the Hall of Fame ballot. But this committee can vote and put them in. And the contemporary era ballot this year is Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Rafael Palmeiro, and Kurt Schilling. And when you take away the known steroid abusers, you're left with Mattingly, McGriff, Murphy, and Schilling. McGriff, I talked about him a few weeks ago. Murphy, I think anybody, he wasn't good for a long time, but there was about an 8-year span. He was great, won 2 MVPs.
Right.
And Murphy started off as a catcher and was converted to a center fielder and was a Gold Glove center fielder. I think Murphy is one of those people that's on the fence, and I would like to see him get in. He's a great guy. Schilling, we talked about him. We both agree should be in there.
No brainer.
Mattingly, I was against him being a Hall of Famer because he did not have a sustained period of greatness. And then a friend of mine in a baseball group, he reminded me that Koufax only had 6 dominant years. Before those last 6 years of his career, the first 6 or 7 years, Koufax was really nothing. It wasn't until what's his name, Sherry got a hold of him and said, "Hey man, you don't have to throw it that hard. You throw hard enough," and that changed him around. So that's kind of bringing me like, I'm kind of on the fence with Mattingly. I've softened a lot with his defense and with his hitting for that 6-year period. He was as good as you could find in the American League. And Mattingly seldom struck out. And
right.
that's the one thing he hated. He hated striking out. He took it as a personal affront that the pitcher has struck me out. And I wish more players were like that. So contemporary era ballot, I think Schilling is going to be a shoe-in. And McGriff, Murphy, and Mattingly, we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and this may be the way that because I do think Bonds, even minus the steroids, when we didn't even have that in our minds, was going to be a Hall of Fame player.
Bonds and Clemens both were Hall of on it. So I don't have a problem with him making the Hall of Fame. Albert Bell, aside from just a jerk, when you're running down trick-or-treaters at your house and trying to run over kids with your car, you don't belong in the Hall of Fame. You belong in prison. And I hope Albert Bell never hears this podcast and runs me down with a car, because he's one bad guy. Rafael Palmeiro just completely screwed it up with, I've never used steroids, period. Perjury.
But this may be the way that some of the steroid guys get in. Like I when it was happening, Mark McGwire, I know you didn't mention him, but I loved him. But now that we know what we know, I don't think he was a Hall of Fame player. But I do think Bonds and Clemens were. And enough times passed, maybe they're learned their lessons. They're checking for that now. And they were premier players for their time period. I don't think Clemens would have won all those Cy Youngs.
Oh,
but he was
not late in his career.
No, I saw him pitch at the Kingdom when I was in the Navy, and he had a 4-hit complete game against the Mariners. And that was when Ken Griffey Jr. was a rookie. They had like Alvin Davis and Jay Buhner and some of those guys. They were okay team, but
I love Jay Buhner. Boy,
I do too.
That bald head just looked menacing.
He was a gamer. That guy was a gamer. I like players like that. You can win for players like that.
He was. Speaking of Barry Bonds, I fortunately had the chance to watch both the Facing Nolan documentary and the Say Hey Willie Mays documentary. And Bonds came across very, very professional, very likable in his talking about Mays, because Mays is his godfather. And so he was on there quite a bit. He has shrunk a lot, he just
surprise.
So, but one of the things about Bonds that I didn't like even before steroids was he was just a jerk. And he didn't like to be interviewed. He was arrogant. And this is the first time I've ever seen him where it's like, hey, there's a human being in there somewhere. So.
There was a book. I don't recall what it was, but in college, he did something and the team voted, every man voted to throw him off the team, and they still kept him on the team anyway because he was the best player on the team. And in the book, evidently in a locker room scuffle, him and RJ Reynolds got into it, and he was telling everybody he was from the hood. And RJ Reynolds goes, "Hood? Your dad was a Major League Baseball player. What hood are you from?" And he didn't want to hear that, but just story after story of how he was just so arrogant and better than everybody. He was a very good baseball player, but I respect the people who have a little humility as well, especially off the field.
Yeah. He was quite a guy. I love to hate him.
Yeah, I love to hate that guy.
The first game I ever took Max to and Violet, they were little, and we went to Wrigley, and the Cubs played the Giants, and it was Bonds last year. I think it was like it wasn't. I think it was his last year, but every time he would come up the bat, the boos would be deafening. What's going on? Satan is here. That's what's going on.
One of my best memories about him is in an all-star game. He hit a ball that was going to be a home run. And Torrey Hunter from Arkansas, I love Torrey Hunter, climbed that wall and brought that ball back in. And there was a moment where Bonds was smiling. He went out and picked up Hunter and kind of threw him up in the air. And it was fun. But that's one of my favorite memories of Bonds is getting a home run stolen by Torrey Hunter.
In Cub news, the Cubs have officially released Jason Hayward. So I'm sure he's going to get a look and invite by somebody, probably a team with a lot of young players who would put him on the bench and help mentor young players. Regardless if he hooks on somewhere or not, he's getting paid 20 some odd million by the Cubs next year. So Contreras declined the qualifying offer, so he is officially a free agent. There was no surprise there. This is kind of interesting. Kyle Hendricks, his last 2 years, his ERA, both years has approached 5, and he's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's never been a hard thrower. I don't think he's ever broke 90 miles per hour with his fastball. But he's going into a program that is designed to increase velocity. And they're not trying to make him a hard thrower. What they're trying to do is increase the miles per hour between the fastball and the changeup. And you look for about 8 to 9 miles disparity between the fastball and the changeup as far as velocity. And his is creeping towards 6. And that's one of the reasons why he's being hit a lot. And he's having to rely a lot more on his third pitch, which is a curveball, which is getting better. But he's a fastball changeup guy. He's the kind of guy that you have a very comfortable 0 for 4 against. At least that's what he was in his prime. And they're actually trying to work with him through a program to get the velocity up so he can get back there. There's rumors that the Cubs have ties to Carlos Correa, Swanson, Dansby Swanson, Tyler Glasnow from the Rays. The Cubs have had talks with the Rays about bringing him aboard. And I
like that guy.
Yeah, I do too. Kodai Senga, the top pitcher in Japan. The Cubs seem to have the inside track on him. And Kevin Kiermaier is a free agent. And the Cubs are looking at him. Kevin Kiermaier is an excellent defensive center fielder. I would have loved this move a few years ago. Now that he's a little older and he's a little slower, he plays a very shallow center field, which could help, when you're playing in Wrigley, which is, has smaller alleys. I'm just not turned on by his bat. I've never been turned on by his bat. You've got to be a premier defensive center fielder to have a very pedestrian plate approach like he does. And I just see his defense diminishing. They're also looking at Cody Bellinger, who has just not been Cody Bellinger the last couple of years for center field. What they're doing is they're trying to find a stopgap. Our best center fielder played Class A last year, Pete Crow Armstrong, who we got in the Baez deal from the Mets. And from everything I've heard and seen, because there's been some stuff that's been on YouTube, he is Gold Glove caliber major league center fielder now, and his hitting has been very good. So probably looking for a stopgap center fielder for this year, maybe next year, half the year, bring up Pete Crow Armstrong and kind of work him in that way. And of course, we're still tied to Jose Abreu. Cubs that have cleared waivers are Franmil Reyes, who is now going to be a free agent. He did not sign a AAA contract. David Bodie, who did sign it, who is going to be on a AAA contract, but he's going to be making $3 million, probably the richest player in AAA next year. And Stephen Brault, former Pirate who pitched a little bit for the Cubs this year, dealing with injuries. He has chosen the free agent route. He is not going to be going to AAA. And our trade this, well, there's a lot of Cub news finally. Our trade this week, we acquired Miles Mastrobuoni. I worked on that name today. Now I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. We got him from the Rays, and he's kind of a utility infielder type that we need. Kind of fill the role that Zach McKinstry did, but he's younger and he's got more. He can play a better shortstop when you plug him into shortstop. So that's news and stuff from the Cubs and everything else. I'm exhausted.
Very good. Very good.
You know what time it is?
Interview time?
It is time to bring on our guest. Tell people who our guest is going to be.
All right. Hey, we are to our interview segment of One Card, One Cub, One Beer. And we have the backbone of the Cardinals with us tonight. One of the beer men, a good friend of mine, Andrew Gieselmann. Glad to have you aboard. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh yeah, we've been talking about having you here for a while, me and Vince. And the first thing we were going to ask you is when and how did you become a baseball fan?
Oh, well, when is probably, as long as I know, I've been a baseball fan. Yeah, I'd say really when I got into it the most would probably be around like the first World Series, like 2006. But I'd always been to games and stuff. Just that's when I started, I guess, watching more and paying more attention to like stats and stuff. I'd always get like the paper in the morning and stuff like that and peruse and see, what Albert's doing, how many home runs he's got, is like he competing for the MVP and stuff. So yeah, the obsession started pretty early.
Were your parents fans?
Yeah, my whole family. So I've been to games with them a bunch of times, and yeah, it's a family thing. Everyone's a Cardinals fan in my family.
Did you have a favorite player growing up? I'm assuming it would be a Cardinal, but Cardinal and another team. Did you have a guy on another team you really was a fan of as well?
Yeah, I guess we can start with the Cardinals. Like, Fernando Vina was one of my favorites whenever he was on the Cardinals. He was always like the leadoff guy. He would be, playing second base too. And that's when they used to like slide into second a lot harder and stuff. It was more of a physical game back then. So he was always a lot of fun to watch. As far as like other teams, it's like Satchel Paige. I liked his stories a bunch, like reading about him. Just like, his career is one of the craziest things I think ever to read about. Like, it's just a story in and of itself. But yeah, those days were cool to read about because they do all the barnstorming, all the off-season stuff because they didn't have minor leagues or anything else kind of set up. So yeah, just to see like the way he played, and he like never, even when he played through injuries and stuff like that too, like, and somehow would just retool his game. So yeah, he'd probably be my favorite non-Cardinal.
Who's your favorite Cub?
That's a good question. I like current Cubs players. I guess there's not too many that I know of right now, but like I always like Contreras. He was a good player. Like, I hope the Cardinals get him, but I don't know. Kerry Wood, I always liked him. He was a really good pitcher. Guys like you respect a bunch. Kerry Wood, anytime he was up against us is like, all right, well, this is gonna be a tough game. But yeah, I always like the rivalry between the two teams for sure.
Oh, definitely. Well, Andrew, with one of the reasons we wanted you to have you on the show is you are, by many accounts, a lot of statistics, the #1 beer man in Busch Stadium, the #1 guy. You're the unsung hero. I mean, Pujols and Arenado get all the accolades, but you're out there quenching them thirst, keeping the fans in the rally mode. So, when did you become a beer man? And you got any stories for us about working the crowd or anything?
Yeah, we need to start selling my jersey, I guess, too. Like that'll probably make quite a bit of money for him. But I started in 2009. I was 18 years old, senior in high school. I had another job at the time. I worked at Chick-fil-A, and it was, it was either really busy or not. And not like a super good fit for me long term, obviously. But yeah, I've always been a big Cardinals fan, and my mom had seen a newspaper ad, I think, advertising jobs there, and she's like, "You should go check that out." I applied and got the job, and then yeah, all summer was basically, back then I wasn't selling beer. I could only sell like peanuts, Cracker Jacks, frozen lemonade. Cotton candy was probably the biggest one. Yeah, it was and I was up on the top floor that year too, and now I'm down on the main floor. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Being a young kid, it was good to have spending money and stuff like that. It was always good money too, and that's 2009 was when we had the All-Star game. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, ton of festivities going on that year. I believe we went to the playoffs, but I don't think I worked any playoff games that year. I was down in college. But yeah, just they had the Futures game there. They had the Home Run Derby game. It was, yeah, quite the experience, to say the least.
When you're vending, how much attention can you actually pay to the game?
Quite a bit, I guess. Whenever I take breaks, I always watch the game, and I can take breaks really whenever I want. But I work for a commission, so it makes sense, sell more and be on the seats and stuff like that. It's like, it's easier for me to pay attention to, because I kind of know where to look as well. I can see things on the big screen whenever they're doing replays right away. I kind of know when to pay attention to. Like, there's downtime in baseball all the time where having timeouts and stuff like that. But yeah, I get to see most of the game, and then whenever the 7th inning happens, we get to check out. So always get to see the end of the game at least, which is nice.
Because it amazes me, because I know if I was vending and I was pouring the beer, as soon as the crowd roared, I would be doing one of these. My hands would naturally spread apart. I'd pour beer on people. I'd be fired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Luckily, we don't have to pour the beer anymore. Then even this year, they told us to stop opening them up too. Like, I used to have to open them all up and hand them down and stuff. But I guess it's just, people won't spill them that way or stuff like that. And yeah, it's a lot better that way. It's easier to hand stuff over. For me, I guess it's more difficult is was making change or paying attention to how much I need to give them, and they need to give me back and stuff. And nowadays we have card reader machines, it's all cashless. So paying attention to how much I'm putting into the transaction, making sure I'm not giving them 5 beers and charging 4 and stuff like that. So yeah, it's all, yeah, there's a lot of things you're kind of keeping track of, and the game is certainly one of them too. You don't want to be out there in the big moments. So yep, that's about it.
I've had so many questions about that, because Andrew, you're a regular sized guy. You're not a big fella, and you've got to lug all this beer up all these steps. First of all, it probably sells itself. What is a good amount you sell in a night? And have you ever had to have somebody and cut somebody off? Can they just, drink until they're, blacked out drunk? Or is there a rule where you think, well, maybe I shouldn't be selling to this guy? Or is that not your decision to make? I was just wondering about that.
Oh no, it's 100% my decision to make. And we do alcohol training every year in different ways and different capacities. So I just have to be kind of caught up on that. Also what signs to look for and all that. I honestly, like, I haven't really ever had to cut people off there. I think beer is just so expensive that people are like, that kind of keeps people under control, you know, in and of itself more often than not. And cutting it, you know, this cut off in general, I think is kind of a good rule too for us, because people would probably start drinking more and getting more rowdy in the later innings if that weren't the case. Yeah, I guess as far as like a good night goes, this year was probably the best I've ever had, because back to kind of like the card reader machines, I can do a lot more transactions quicker that way, as long as they have their card ready and stuff. It's easier to tap it than it is to make change and hand it back and add all that up. Yeah, I usually like kind of have like 3 cases as my benchmark. If I can do over 3 cases, that's good. And I think a case is about like 32 beers, so about 100 beers a night is really good. I'll also do like bottled water and stuff too. Those will sell pretty well, especially during hot day games. And I still carry around peanuts, because those are light and kind of a good compliment. I mean, people will stop me for peanuts sometimes, and then they'll buy a beer, so, or vice versa. So yeah, basically the more you can provide for people, the better, I think, and stuff. Yeah.
I grew up in the 70s, and me and my friends, we would go to games. We would bum rides. Our parents would have seats, or somehow we'd get to the games without tickets. We'd wait in line for the bleachers, because at that time it was first come, first serve. And you spent, believe it or not, like $2.50 for a ticket. And if you got there early enough, you could sit in the front. And by the time I was 12, I'd been to so many ball games. I'd been offered so many warm beers on day games by drunk people. You want this? I need a cold one. You know? I never took it, because I was a good Baptist. But anyway, I saw a lot of stuff in the bleachers back in those days, because it was a lot wilder. I've seen people bend over the outfield wall, throw up their nachos and beer and stuff like that. You have to have some pretty good stories of stuff that you've seen. Give us a few that are maybe family friendly.
Yeah, I'll try to see. I mean, I think like one of the coolest things I saw this year maybe wasn't quite like a fan thing, but well, I guess he is a fan. But when Albert Pujols hit the home run, and I think it was like a pretty big one they hit, and Nelly was behind the plate, and he went and high-fived him or whatever through the netting. I was like right close to there, so I kind of saw it all unfold. Like, that was one of the cooler things I think I've ever seen a fan do. Right? If you qualify Nelly as a fan. Yeah. Other than that, like, I mean, people will. I think what's cool is just like see what people bring a lot. Like, they're like, especially where I'm down now. I'm down kind of on the main floor where more of the regular guys are. And like the guy who has all like the crazy signs is down there. He has season tickets, so you'll see him. Like, especially this year, he had a bunch of like Wainwright stuff and Pujols stuff. I'm trying to think of like a crazy. I mean, one that sticks out from this year that was kind of crazy was in the playoffs. There was like a Phillies fan there that was booing Bryce Harper just specifically, and no other Phillies fan, like no other Phillies player. Like, he was like, he had decked out in Phillies gear, rooting for the Phillies, and anytime Bryce Harper came up, he was like saying overrated, like we're paying too much for you and stuff. And then I think it just seemed to like kind of fuel Bryce Harper though, because then I think he hit a home run, and like he was probably their MVP of the playoff run. Yeah, you'll see a lot of people do stuff like that where it's just like, I don't know, like almost karma-inducing type stuff. It's like, you know, like I kind of see it unfold in real time, and yeah, I mean, it's there's always something going on there.
I've been wondering this, and I think I've talked to you about this a couple of times, but when the Cardinals, when a visiting team comes, some teams fans travel better. The Cub fans come down because it's so close. But who would you rate, as far as this is just what you've observed, as some of the kinder, nicer fans and tip nicely? And then who would you say might be, you know, down at the bottom of the list a little bit? Do you have any things to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Cubs fans are probably the best, like, as far as like friendliness and stuff. And I'm not just saying that either. Like, I mean it. Like
It's
the
a friendly
rivalry helps.
rivalry.
Yeah, it is a friendly rivalry. I mean, even when the Cubs were like really good in beating us, like, I mean, we still kind of respected it. Like, you know, we were more upset at the Cardinals for not being good. I think at the Cubs for, you know, I mean, like for being good. We're just beating up on them for so many years. But yeah, I mean, anytime they come down this year, it's just like that's when everyone wants to work. Is like the Cubs games, and like not just because of the rivalry, but yeah, because the Cubs fans that travel down are always in a great mood. Like they're tipping well. They're usually down there for the weekend, so they're out in different bars coming around and stuff. So it's always a fun atmosphere whenever they're in the building. As far as worst fans, I think I've mentioned this to JJ before, but and I might not have even believed this until this year, but the Yankees, I'd say they have the worst fans as far as people traveling, and like that's like by far. Like other fan bases kind of comment it's like hit or miss, but the Yankees fans, I think when they came, the Yankees were in first place in the entire league at the time. And had been doing really well, and then we swept them. But whenever they came there, like they were kind of the opinion that like the season was over, that like they were the best team already. And yeah, I mean, like arrogant was kind of I don't know, like a feeling I got from some of them because they weren't tipping very well. And they were like being really demanding and stuff like that too, kind of like reaching and grabbing stuff, which is usually not good. Because like, I mean, if someone takes something out of my bin and I don't, or out of like the bucket and I don't see them do it, then I can't add it up type thing. And then that comes back on me. Most people don't do that, but yeah, for whatever reason, they were over the top, kind of not great crowd.
Figures.
Well,
yeah, right.
doing the lower levels. Have you ever met the Marlins man? The guy who dresses in the orange and Marlins crap just for stupid reasons, I guess.
No, I've never met him, but like and the green seats I can't really spell to. Those are all like serve air, like they have servers kind of go through there and like bring them up stuff. So they don't even need beer guy in that area. But yeah, he's there a bunch. See, like we're talking comedy too. Like they have a bunch of comedians come through. Like the bigger guys will come through, and usually they get like box seats, like club box seats up there. But yeah, they'll put them up in the big screen and stuff. Like Chris Rock was there this year. That was pretty cool to see. Yeah, there's always some sort of celebrity coming through, which is really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had anything else to add. I love the Cardinal Cub rivalry. I went to opening day one time and it was Cardinal Cubs, and there was 9 guys dressed in Cub uniforms from the 1916 era, and they were zombies, and they were all the 1916 I believe that was our 1908. I think that was it, 1908 Cubs. I thought that was great. They got a great sense of humor, very knowledgeable, and it's a good time. They like to stand up and applaud when their guys do something good. You know, they want to take a little of that in, but I love the Cardinal Cub rivalry as well.
Yeah, it's got to be fun to work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, we do need to wrap this up, but we do want to thank you for your time and thank you for being our second guest.
Yes,
the check is in the mail.
I was wanting to add that Andrew is a comedian in St. Louis, and that's how we kind of met and got to know him. And I've seen him the first time he went on stage, and he's on a mission right now. I see him all over the place. And you have some shows coming up. Do you have any you want to plug around St. Louis? I've seen you at the Funny Bone and Big Daddy's, and I've seen you all over. So I know you're promoting some shows here coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool. Like, I mean, being at Busch Stadium this year was the first time people would come up to me and be like, "Hey, we saw you at the Funny Bone," or like Big Daddy's is another one that people are like, "Yeah, we saw you at Big Daddy's." I saw like there's like a big crowd of people that had come to Big Daddy's one time that were all sitting in one of my sections. So like that's always fun to get recognized in that way. As far as shows go, I'm putting on my own show at the Heavy Anchor on my birthday, November 30th. That's at 8 p.m. And then the next week, I am hosting the Steve's Hot Dogs open mic. Me and JJ go to that one quite a bit. That one's one of our favorites. So that'll be a great time. And I believe I'm doing the show with Corey and Teal in January. So that's a little bit farther down the line. But yeah, I'm doing a bunch of improv classes starting the December 4th. So yeah, I'll be busy and out and about a bunch.
Fantastic. I know it slows down. You're not at the Busch Stadium right now, but I'm so happy for you, and continue with all your success, man. And thank you for coming on today, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
For the first time in one Cardinal, one Cub, and one beer history, we are going to take divergent paths. Okay. I'm going to highlight the 1994 Chicago Cubs, and JJ is going to highlight the 2022 baseball season. So those of you who are Cub fans, get ready, buckle in. Actually, I'm going to do the 1995 Cubs. I don't know why I said 94, because I'm getting old. JJ, would you like to go first? Or
I would love to go first. With the season being over, like I said, both me and Vince go through a little depression, but we do have all the winter things that are going on. But I wanted to look back at the year that was. And first off, the Kansas City Royals it's been announced today that they're going to get rid of Kauffman Stadium. And I hear they're going to build their new stadium, perhaps even on the Kansas side of Kansas City. I don't know that for a fact yet, but when I was out there this summer, that's what they were talking about. And it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar facility. And I hope, I've read this, and me and some of the other people were talking, I hope they keep their scoreboard. If you've ever been to Kansas City, they got that giant royal, incredible score. I think the best scoreboard in the pros, and the waterfalls. So that's my two things. I hope they keep going on to next year. Go ahead.
Let me interject here. I lived in Kansas City from 88 through 90. The Bo Jackson years, the end of George Brett's career. They weren't a great team, but they were fun to watch. It's a wonderful stadium. I know why they want to move it closer to downtown, because it is kind of out, but it's a beautiful stadium. It sits on the same property as Arrowhead. And if you go to a game in Royal Stadium, I saw Ryan pitch there once. I saw Bo Jackson get picked off by Dave Righetti, and he did the little league thing where he took off for second. Righetti throws to first, and he actually beat the throw to second. Got some great memories from Royal Stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. The waterfalls have always been beautiful, and seems like they just pumped a ton of money in, state money, into that stadium. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, I was out there this summer, and it looks nice. It looks like it could go another 20 years on the surface. And it's one of my favorite places to see a ball game because of the parking. It's just a gigantic parking lot around it. I love going to Wrigley, but it's hard to find parking at Wrigley Field. You almost have to take a Uber or the subway or whatever in. Houston's horrible parking as well. So, but Kansas City, it's great. You can get there early. People are tailgating. It's a good time. I recommend you all go out there. It's a good time. Also, this year, we had the new playoff format. The first time ever, instead of 4 teams, we had 6 teams from each league make it. And I was apprehensive at first, but I kind of like it, because the 2 teams in the American League that made it were Tampa Bay and Seattle. And Seattle got through the first round and did okay in the second round too. I really and it was good for Seattle because they were 21 years without the playoffs. And it's unfortunate that they had come up with a new playoff format for them to make the playoffs, but it was great for Seattle and their fans, and they've got the rookie of the year, and it looks like they're building something nice up there in Seattle. So I'm happy for them. And then in the National League, the 2 teams that wouldn't have made it were the Padres and the Phillies. And the Phillies, the playoff run they made, I don't know if it was historic, but it was one of the most memorable things. They were underdogs to the Cardinals and to the Braves, and then to the Padres, and they got through every round and gave Houston a run for their money. And it seemed like that maybe that no-hitter took the life out of them a little bit, but what a season for the Phillies. They should be very proud, and they wouldn't have made the playoffs otherwise. So I kind of like that as well. And then the upstart teams. There's always these predictions at the beginning of the year. This team's going to be good. That team's going to be good. But the Baltimore Orioles had lost 100 games 3 years in a row. And of course, when you do that, you accumulate all these hopefully prospects, and they brought them up. They even traded like the leader of their team, Trey Mancini. He got traded, but this team made a nice run and almost made the playoffs, and perhaps the best division in baseball. So Baltimore fans, I'm happy for them. Ex-St. Louis Browns, by the way.
Yes, yes. Max and I went to a game in Chicago, and they were playing the Orioles, and we were riding the L into to the stadium, and there was a lot of Oriole fans there. I mean, they came out of the woodwork, which surprised me. And at that time, they were just pushing 500, and I think if they won, they were going to hit 500. And they were in the mix at that time. And this guy gets on the L with this very decked out Oriole stuff. And we started talking a bit. I said, did you think that you would be in this position this year? He said, absolutely not. So it's good that baseball, Oriole baseball is on the upswing. It's a great baseball city. The people travel well. They're fanatics for their teams. And I remember those great Oriole teams from the 70s, late 60s, through the early 80s that were really good. Jim Palmer, Cal Ripken Jr., just Brooks Robinson, just all kinds
Earl
of
Weaver. Love Earl Weaver.
Earl Weaver and Eddie Murray. Just great. The Baltimore's on the upswing.
Yeah, and Camden Yards. I've never been there. That's a place I'd like to on my bucket list, but I'd love to go to Camden Yards and see a game. And for all you baseball fans out there, there's an organization, you can look them up. They have a big luncheon, and it's not very expensive. It's the St. Louis Brown Society. A lot of the writers in St. Louis are members, and they have a big luncheon, and they feed you, and they have guest speakers. And this year up at the Soulard area, they had Jerry Royce come in and just tell some stories. They got memorabilia there. I recommend it very highly. It's a fun time. I love the history of the game. So I've yet to be to one. I had the thing I had was busy that weekend, but I'm going to try to make it next time. And, but I think also 2022, if in the future, when all the little things will be forgotten, this is the year that Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs. What a year. I remember watching, MLB, and they're talking about he's on pace. When you hit April, May, June, and you're on a certain pace, they keep showing, and then, they'd show Ruth and Maris's face up there and Aaron Judge. And this is where they were at on this date. And that's fun, that everyday chase of that record, because 61, I know Bonds hit more and Sosa and McGuire, but that's still the magic number for me. And it is was the American League record. And now Judge has the American League record, another Yankee. Yeah. I also thought this year was a year of the Fountain of Youth. I mean, Justin Verlander just won the Cy Young Award. You had Albert Pujols. And I remember in May, friends of mine were saying, do you think Wainwright will get to 200 wins, or will Pujols hit a 700th home run? And everyone to a man, and I know you're out there listening, every one of you guys said, oh, Wainwright's going to get 200 wins before Albert hit 700. And something happened. I'll be honest with you, when he was announced to be in the home run derby, I was a little worried. I was like, oh, Albert, don't embarrass yourself. You're in your 40s now. And he made it through the first round. And of course, some people said, oh, they took it easy on him. But Albert seemed like from that All-Star game on, just played a completely different second half of the season. It was a great goodbye. Yachty, Although Yachty wasn't the Yachty from 3 years or 4 years ago, it was still nice, and he still played a good defense. Justin Turner, he's getting a little older too. He's always played a good third base, so it's kind of the year of the old timers still got it kind of thing. This year also, Ohtani from the Angels. Vince, I don't know how you feel about this guy, but this is something special. He plays out on the West Coast, so we don't get to see the games, but we see the highlights the next
Yeah.
day. Is this guy something else or what? He's DHing, he's hitting home runs, he's winning games. If Judge hadn't hit 62 this year, it hasn't been announced yet, the MVP, but Ohtani, you probably could pencil him for the MVP for the next 6 years if he keeps this kind of pace. It's amazing.
I would pay him $50 million a year, because with him, you're getting a number one starter and a cleanup hitter. $25 million for each position, worth every penny. It would not hamper your payroll any more than bringing in 2 high-priced free agents, and that's basically what you're doing. Just a freak of nature, and by all accounts, a really good guy.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador of the game too, because I know the Japanese press follow him around. Baseball's huge in Japan, and it's just an ambassador to the game, and it's great to see this guy out there doing his thing.
The Asian players have been coming here, I guess since the 90s. When did Nomo start? Was it the early 90s?
Yeah. I saw him pitch in St. Louis, I believe it was 96.
Yeah. When you look at the Asian players that have come over from the Japanese league, from Nomo, Matsui, oh gosh, who the Cardinals have?
We had Taguchi. Yeah,
Taguchi. All through this last 30 years, the best ones are coming over here, and they're all representing, and I'm not talking about talent wise, because that's obvious. I'm talking about as human beings. They're representing the Japanese Baseball League very well. I mean, we're not getting their Albert Bells. We're getting some great quality people, and I've been very impressed with how, to a man, I can't think of any. The Cubs had Kosuke Fukudome, who kind of liked the nightlife a lot, but he was a nice guy, I can't remember any of the Asian players that have come over that have just been, oh, wait a minute, the guy from the Korean Baseball League who went to the Pirates, who got all the DUIs.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, that was just like 5 years ago. He's pretty decent. Can't remember his name, but yeah, he had some issues. But other than that, they've all represented the Japanese Baseball League and the Korean Baseball League very well.
And they're very good fundamentally. It seems like there's a style of ball they play, a lot of fundamental. They're not showboating. They don't throw the bat. Very fundamental, respectful, I would call it, style of play, which I really like.
Yeah.
Well, on my list, some more. I have, I think this may be the greatest entrance song ever. Edwin Diaz, the reliever from the New York Mets, they have the song Narco, and it's trumpets. And it's almost like the bullfighter coming into the arena. And place goes nuts. At Shea Stadium, they've got the, I don't even know if it's Shea Stadium anymore. They got the trumpets and they're getting into it. And it's a good time. I tell you what, and like you were saying before, baseball needs a little more of that. And that became like the thing of the summer too, because the Mets were very good, and he came in and just shut the door down. He had a really good year, and that song really caught on. That was very cool. Other things, there was a story, and I love stories like this, the underdog guy. There was a guy for, I believe it was Colorado. His name was Winton Bernard, and he spent 11 years in the minor leagues. And a lot of guys give up by that time. It seems like by the time you get to 26, 27, if you haven't made up to the big leagues, it might be time to hang it up, because there's always a bunch of young new players trying to get up there and you kind of get passed by. But this guy, for whatever reason, played for 5 different teams in the minors, and at the age of 31 made his major league debut and got a hit. I mean, I teared up. I was so happy for him. And he ended up hitting 286 over 12 games. And I thought that was just a great baseball story, because you never know where these stories are going to come from. All these guys were probably the best player in their county, maybe even in their state. And sometimes they just get all the way up to AAA and don't quite make it over the hump. We had a kid, Ricky Poe from Marmaduke, Arkansas, and that's a town of 1,000 people. Incredible ball player. And he was a first baseman. And he got drafted by the Mets, and he made it all the way to AAA. And Keith Hernandez was the first baseman of the Mets, and he never got to make it to the big leagues. Sometimes it's just, that's how it goes. But
yeah,
anyway, it was good to see that story. Another story, with the sabermetrics, they say wins matter, but the wins aren't as big as they used to be, because it's a team thing now where the bullpen guys can. Well, Kyle Wright won 21 games, and we don't see many 20-game winners anymore.
No.
And it was great to see Kyle Wright win 21 games. Sandy Alcantara, who you mentioned a while ago, has brought back the complete game. He had 6 of them this year, and no other team had more than 3. I saw him pitch against the Cardinals. We had him on the ropes, but they left him in the game. They ended up getting the win. He ended up pitching 228.2 innings. That's fantastic. And I'm telling you, if you know your ace can go out there and your bullpen can pretty much get most of the guys get a rest, that's big, especially down the stretch. He ended up being 14-9 with a 228.2 innings and 6 complete games. And I dread the day we traded him. I wish we still had Sandy Alcantara, but that happens to every team. We needed some power at the time, and we ended up trading him.
This is how much baseball's changed over the past few years. In 2016, when Hendricks led the league in ERA, it was like below 2.2. And there was talk that he would, was he a front runner for the Cy Young? The consensus with the writers was, no, he didn't pitch. I can't vote for someone who didn't pitch 200 innings. And in today's world, Verlander probably didn't pitch 180 innings. It's the evolution of pitching has just been very rapid these last few years, the last 10 years.
Yeah, the bullpen now has become a big thing. If you can get 5 or 6 innings, that bullpen will pitch 3 or 4 for you now. But I'm telling you, year after year, game after game, that just takes a toll. You're going to have a lot of prospects come up and fill those spots. I don't know if you can keep doing that over and over. Like the Royals, when they won the World Series, they only went 5 innings, and then they had these 3 studs that would come in and just shut you down. But they did it for 2 years. Yes,
they did.
We had some Triple Crown races this year. Neither guy got it, but Judge and Goldschmidt from the Cardinals were in that race for the Triple Crown up to probably the end of August, I'd say. And Judge won 2 of the categories. He didn't get the batting title. That was a Minnesota Twin player that I can't pronounce his name, but he didn't get the batting title. And then Goldie didn't win any of the categories, but was very high in all 3. I know Jeff McNeil won the batting title, and I thought Goldie had it. And I think the Cardinal fans celebrated a little early. It's tough. It's tough to win a batting title. It's tough to win a home run. To do all 3 together, it's just the last National League player was 1931, Ducky Medwick. So it just doesn't happen very often. And I guess I'm going to end on the Seattle Mariners with their 21-year drought ended with making the playoffs. And you know how that is, Vince, not rubbing it in about the Cubs, but that drought with the World Series, it's great. And that fan base will never forget that. And maybe they can build on it and it'll become something special now. But that's my wrap of the 2022 season.
It has been a fun season. I enjoyed it from opening day on. And next year it's going to be a little bit of extra fun when the Cubs and Cardinals play in London. That's going to be pretty cool. So I'm already looking forward to next year because I'm depressed.
That's right. Help me.
Oh, I'm gonna highlight the 1995 Cubs, and this is one of my favorite Cub teams because they completely overachieved and they were in it till close to the end. If you remember, and if you're too young, you may not, this may sound like ancient history. 1994, we had a lockout. And so the season, boom, came to an end. And everybody was expecting, okay, by the time September rolls around, I think the lockout happened at like, was it towards the end of July? But anyway, everybody was thinking, okay, they'll get this straightened out by the time September rolls around. They'll be playing again, play the postseason. It just lingered on, and we didn't have a World Series. We had no postseason, and you talk about depressed.
Yeah.
I was very depressed. In '95, the lockout was still going on. Spring training was delayed, and they finally hammered out a deal. And so they came up with a 144 game schedule, a regular schedule is 162 games. So they chopped off 18 games. Now in 1995, it was the 50th anniversary of the Cubs' last pennant. Now, because there was a lockout, attendance in baseball fell dramatically. They had per game 6,000 less fans. So revenue was down and interest was just not there. The Cubs that year, they drew 1.9 million. The year before, they had averaged, and I don't want to say how many it's kind of hard to say, they had this many million because the games were shortened, but the season was shortened. But in '94, the Cubs averaged 31,300 fans, which is almost capacity for Wrigley Field. It's very good. In '95, that fell down to 26,500 per game. And so they were kind of like league average as far as attendance fell. Interest in baseball had waned. The season finally started, and the Cubs had Jim Riggleman, one of my favorite baseball men of all time, had a lot of ties to the Cardinals. He was managing the Cubs, and he had a team that had Mark Grace, who was our premier player at the time. He hit 326, had 92 RBIs. He would have had 100 RBIs with the extra 18 games, but it was what it was. 144 games, 92 RBIs, very good. Sammy Sosa had a great season. He had 268, 36 home runs, 119 RBIs, 34 stolen base. That was his second consecutive 30-30 club season. This is before he really started hitting 1,000,005 home runs. He projected to be somewhere in that 25 to low 30s home run type of hitter when he matured, and that's what he was at this time. And he also had a gun in right field. Our center fielder we got from the Royals, Brian McRae, whose father was Hal McRae. He hit 288 for us. Sean Benson was our shortstop, and he had his best year offensively. He hit 296. Luis Gonzalez was our left fielder. We got him from Houston. Luis Gonzalez hit 7 home runs. He played about a little over half the games. He had 7 home runs and drove in 34 RBIs. This is before Luis Gonzalez discovered steroids, because he went to Arizona and suddenly was popping 50 home runs. I saw him with the Cubs, and he was not a home run hitter. He was a slap hitter, and he was a part-time. He was your 4th outfielder. Do you know who our third baseman was that year?
In '95?
Yeah.
Who was your third baseman? I'm trying to think. No, I don't know who your third baseman was.
Todd Zeile was our third baseman.
Todd Zeile. Wow. I don't remember him being a Cub.
Yeah, he had a terrible season. He only hit 227, but we had him and Steve Buechele, and Steve Buechele actually had a worse season. So he was our primary third baseman. Jamie Navarro, he was 14-6 with a 3.28 ERA, pitched 200 innings in a short season, pretty good. Pitcher that I always liked for the Cubs, Frank Castillo, he had a 3.21. He had an excellent changeup, but he just never could put it together. He seemed like a version of Kyle Hendricks 25 years ago. We had Mike Perez as our setup man, 3.66 ERA. Mike Perez should be familiar to Cardinal fans.
Oh, yeah.
And our closer was Randy Myers with 38 saves. what I loved about this team is we finished 73 and 71, 2 games above 500. We had no business finishing 73 and 71. We had a little bit of talent, but as you can see by our pitching staff, a bunch of no-name guys, we pitched above our heads that year. And we finished third in the Central behind the Reds and the Astros. We only finished, the thing that was exciting is we only finished 4 games out of the wild card, which was won by Colorado. We were in it till the final week of the season. So the very last week, I'm excited for baseball. We have a chance to make the playoffs for the first time since 1989. This was the year, I swear to God, I was the only person in St. Louis who cared about baseball. The Cardinals sucked that year. They lost 81 games. They were terrible. This was the end of the Brewery's ownership because after the 95 season, that's when DeWitt bought the team. So the Brewery, once the old man died, nobody cared.
They didn't.
Baseball was just a part of the books. And with the Dow Maxville was the general manager, and he had tight limits on what he could spend. And Dow Maxville, even though he's kind of a Cardinal legend,
yeah,
he's kind of a jerk. The players did not like him because he could be a hard ass. And so nobody in St. Louis cared about this Cardinal team after the lockout, a bad team. So I had nobody to talk baseball with me. And that's probably why this season is so memorable for me, because nobody cared. I was walking around, we may make the playoffs. And everybody's like, I don't care. I'll never watch a baseball game again. They locked us out. Blah, 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 blah. There was no World Series last year. Blah, 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 blah. And so my oldest daughter was about 5 years old then. And I took her to her first ball game that year, and she enjoyed it. And I remember sitting there in Busch Stadium, not the original Sportsman's Park that became Busch Stadium, but I guess they call it the new Busch Stadium, which is now the old Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
That Busch Stadium, that was a cookie cutter stadium. We are sitting there and we're watching the Cardinals play the Cubs, and the Cubs are winning, and nobody was paying attention to this game. You always see lulls in game. You see people playing with their kids and stuff like this. I mean, from the first pitch, there were people doing everything else watching this baseball game. Now, the Cub fans were into it because we had a decent team. We were playing above our heads, but the Cardinal fans were just not into it. It's like someone gave them the tickets. Oh, well, there's nothing playing at the movies. We got the Cardinal tickets. Let's go to the game. So that's why the season is so memorable for me, because I think I was the only excited person in the city of St. Louis. What are your memories about the 95 season?
I remember going to a day game when we got eliminated. I remember going to a day game, and there couldn't have been more than, I'm saying, 8,000 people at that game. And you could hear the beer vendors. You could hear Andrew Gieselmann over there on the other side yelling for beer. And it was sad. And it made us really enjoy the Tony La Russa years and the DeWitt years when they bought the team. But it was as bleak as I ever remember being a Cardinal fan. In the 70s, we didn't win, but we knew it was because the Pirates and the Phillies were so good. We were okay, but the Phillies, then it was bleak, and they wouldn't go out and get any players we needed. And when they did, it was just guys that were kind of cast off from other teams. I really wasn't paying much attention to the Cubs. I was trying to take anything I could out of that season, enjoy it. And it was just a sad time. And it was near the end of the Ozzie Smith years. I remember that. So
yeah.
we still had Ozzie, even when the Cardinals were bad, we had Lou Brock there in the late 70s. And we had Ozzie there in the mid 90s before he said goodbye. So we had that and Tewksbury and those, but there wasn't much to cheer about. And then, I want to say this too. I think a lot of the young Cardinal fans are a little spoiled because they've had like 15 years of winning baseball, and that just doesn't come along. And you can't take it for granted. It could be gone tomorrow. the future does look bright, but you guys don't realize what we went through in the early 90s. And if we can't make it, I don't mind if the Cubs do, as long as the Mets don't win. That's the only team I don't want to see win. But that's how I recall that late 95 team. I didn't even know Todd Zill was a Cub. I think I sort of have a baseball card maybe with him as a Cub, but I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah, he probably doesn't remember much about it either. wasn't his best years. And the thing was, when DeWitt bought the team, instantly there was excitement again.
Yes.
And what happened in 96? They went to the playoffs.
Yes.
And they came within a game of the World Series, didn't they?
It was the game we were playing the Braves and we were up 3-1.
Yeah.
And we thought, one more game. All we had to do, and they were going to be pitching Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz. All we had to do was win one of those games, and they blew us out. And I believe that's the year the Braves got McGriff halfway through the season.
It is.
And he was like, it was like when the Pirates in 79 got Bill Madlock. It was just that missing piece, and they went on a tear. And anytime you got Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz, 3 Hall of Famers, what are you going to do? And they just beat us. And they were by far the better team, but we had them on the ropes. We just couldn't finish it off. But what a turnaround. You know, LaRussa, we had Todd Stoudemire. He brought off Dave Duncan, came in and worked with the pitchers. And that guy, if there's ever a pitching coach that deserves to go in the Hall of Fame, I think Dave Duncan could be that guy. A lot of years in the league, a lot of success stories. He took Dave Stewart, was a guy who bounced around. He made him a star in Oakland. You know, I could go on and on about him, but man, that was a good time that it was a turning point.
The Cubs in the 90s had a middle relief pitcher who was just so pedestrian, and his name was Kent Bottenfield. The Cardinals pick him up, LaRussa gets a hold of him, and he became an all-star for 1 year.
That's all we needed. My friend
1 year, then they traded him and Adam Kennedy for Jim Edmonds. And never did anything after that.
No, we've done that. That's the Cardinal history there. I think we have a thing about, buy low, sell high. And that seems to work pretty good.
Well, JJ, you're going to be amazed. I went out and I bought 2022 baseball cards.
Oh.
I still have plenty of old baseball cards. In fact, my wife and daughter went out of town to Springfield this week, and there's a secondhand store. We go to a lot of secondhand stores. There's a secondhand store there. It's called STD. It's been there forever. It was named that back when STD was VD, I guess, So, but I told her, I said, "Oh, when you go to STD, see if you can find some cards." So I got some old cards too, but I've got quite a few new packs of new cards. So I'm opening a 2022 Topps.
Oh, it looks like an archive one too. These are like
yes, it is.
cards.
It is an archive. Yes.
All right, I'm excited to see this. It'll be like old style, but new players.
Let's see what we got here. And I just miss wax wrapping paper. They're so much easier to open. So
it makes me sad we won't have a Bip Roberts. No Bip Roberts this week.
Oh, well, Bip was getting a little big for his britches. He'd been on the show, so much, he thought he owned it. Oh, I am very excited. I got my first Seiya Suzuki baseball card.
Very cool. I like that picture too. Very cool.
And it's got all of his numbers from Hiroshima. So because he hasn't played a major league game yet. And I do like the cartoons that the retro cards have, Those
yes,
are
I do. Fun. Oh yeah. Takes me back.
And Rhys Hoskins. First baseman for the National League champion Phillies. Former Cub. DJ LeMahieu.
Oh, yeah.
Won a batting title and played Gold Glove defense, and we just gave him away. And Alex Kirilloff. Do you know who this guy is?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I think he's in the witness protection program now. Oh. Yeah, this guy's okay. Jose Altuve.
Oh, yes. Future Hall of Famer.
Ryan Velotti,
Okay.
pretty
Oh, I like
card.
that. I like that silver tone to it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the retro cards. Well, before I get to that, let me Aljuris Montero for the Rockies.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But here are the retro cards. From the dreaded Mets, former All-Star David Wright,
I
who
love he was on my fantasy league for about 5 years. 5 years I had Dave Wright.
he was on a great track for possibly a Hall of Fame career, and then injuries got him. And one of my favorite pitchers from the 70s from my childhood, Jim Palmer.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, the leg kick there.
Leg kick. Great guy. So he's still doing the color commentating for the Baltimore Orioles. So,
well, he's one of their all-time greats, like Jim Palmer a lot.
yeah.
A lot of great memories. He was on that team with the 420 game winners, which we'll probably never see again unless things
Dobson,
change.
Palmer, McNally, and Cuellar.
Boom, you're good. Very good. Well, Vince, I know I said I'd never buy another pack of these. Evidently, I bought 2 of them. So we're not
$7 packs.
The $7 packs. They saw me coming, Vince. I think the $3.50 for everybody else, but they see me coming. They were probably Cub fans, or the Mets. They suckered me in. But it's the GQ, and it's got Vladdy Jr. on it, and I've got the darn background on, so I'm going to try to show these off. I like the look of the cards. It's more of a artwork, a drawing type style. But first baseman, third baseman, second baseman of was a Cardinal, Matt Carpenter. And with the new rules next year, where they used to move everybody to one side of the infield, he may have another year or 2 left in him. So we'll see what happens.
I will predict that Carpenter and Rizzo will put 40 points on their batting average. The two guys that I saw the most have really got ate up by the shifts.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I like Matt. He gets a lot of pitches. Man, it seems like he's always in a 3-2 count. He works those pitchers. He is a little older now. He had a renaissance this year with the Yankees. Vince, I don't even know who this guy is. Ryan Velotti, and it looks like I can't even tell what team he's on. Anyway, Rockies, Colorado Rockies. I like that look. Nice look of that card. We have let's see here. Let's see who this is. Oh, Zach Plesac, second generation player right there. Yeah, very good player. Anyway, I would love the card. I know the Cardinals are looking for pitching, and there's talk of us making a trade perhaps for some of the Guardians pitchers. Bieber, or Glass now, as you mentioned before, he's on the Cardinal radar. We talked about him earlier, Trey Mancini. That's still when he was with the Orioles, kind of the elder statesman of the Orioles. He got traded, and he didn't have a really good run with the Astros, but I'll remember that first base play he made where there was a line shot and he caught it right off the bag. And then there's a special card here. I don't know but it's a smaller card, and it's an Altuve card.
Because he's a smaller man.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, there you go. So the Jose Altuve card right there. I like the Astros. I do like the rainbow look they had in the 80s, but I like those orange uniforms they wear. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's my set right there. And I'd like to make an announcement. Our contest is closed. We actually stopped the contest when Rizzo took the Yankee contract. I believe we have 11 very strong souls that said, you know what, I'm going to get my picks out there. And so far we got 2 free agents off that list that have went pretty much and stayed with the team they were on, Jock Peterson and Anthony Rizzo. So we're going to keep track of this. And the next time we meet up, we'll see who's leading, and I'll break it down. I'll have a sheet with everybody how many they got right and all that. And again, they're playing for this 1942 World Series beer mug right there. Well, I'll put it right in front of me. There we go. So anyway, So thank you all for participating. And this will be fun.
And so far, of all the participants, there's only one that has both right. There is a second who's got 2 right, but the second one doesn't count because my son Max is playing and he's got both right so far. Personally, I am 1-1, and
I'm 1-1.
JJ, I think you're 1-1. So everybody's still in it, and
Yeah,
this can linger on until January, February, who knows, but it's a lot of fun. We do thank those who are participating. We will not be dropping a show next week because of Thanksgiving. I think if I decide to do this and spend my Thursday editing, my wife might kill me. So I don't want to die. Not yet. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you, and we appreciate your support.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.